Hello, I'm Trent Bell, and I'm an architectural photographer. Occasionally, we get questions from people who follow us online, and occasionally we answer them. This question comes from Holt Webb. High-end clients spending big dollars for elite images. What kinds of businesses are they? Architectural firms, manufacturers, engineers, ad agencies, and how is it they understand the value of the amount of work that goes into elite imagery? So to answer this question from my experience, the clients that we have, regional print publications, national print publications, so Main Home Design regionally, New York Times nationally, Dwell nationally, Condé Nast we've had some stuff featured in. There's a lot of different publications you can go with. Publications like New York Times, they pay ridiculously low. They pay you with their reputation. And most any publication isn't really going to be paying a living wage. You're mostly going to need to be shooting for the initial client and then passing that work on to them where they have kind of a stock rate. Entities that I work for primarily are going to be architects. Larger architecture firms and smaller residential firms that need elite imagery for representing their product. We've also worked for like Kohler, Anderson, Pella, Marvin, companies like that, and a little bit for ad agencies. We've worked for high-end furniture makers, anything where still life with maybe some sprinkling of lifestyle is going to be coming in handy for them. There's an interesting dynamic with like lifestyle photographers and advertising photographers that they are going to have, there's going to be more demand for their imagery than for a specifically architectural photographer. It's a very, very niche market for architectural photography, and there's generally not going to be a middleman involved. You're usually going to be shooting from yourself to the end client. There's not usually going to be the architectural photographer, a representative, and then the end client. So we don't as much shoot for ad agencies. But that being said, we just recently had one of the bigger jobs we've ever had, and it was through an ad agency shooting for a large hotel chain. So that's great. But things like finding a rep and working with ad agencies consistently are not as easy to accomplish, or they're not, that type of work is not as readily available as it is for shooting directly for architects. Now, architects will primarily have their own in-house marketing teams. And so you kind of have, to a degree, fish in a barrel that you're trying to get in touch with and advertise your services for. So that being said, yes, it's primarily architects, varying degrees from residential, small, really high-end residential firms to large commercial firms. And then all of the things that would go into any residential commercial business space, all of those appliances, finishes, and everything else, those are all your potential clients. And then the publications that would feature those images are also your potential clients. And how is it that they understand the value of the amount of work that goes into elite imagery? So anyone who's you can kind of smell from the outset if you're dealing with someone who is moving into hiring a professional architectural photographer for the first time. They won't ask the right questions, and they'll kind of expect like, hey, just give us an estimate for shooting this. They won't say, hey, we've got a shot list and we want this type of imagery, that type of imagery, and we want this type of look to the day. Or, you have to put up with shooting initially starting out for people who don't know. You're going to have a much more of an uphill educational battle. You're going to have to be educating more of your initial clients towards what goes into actually producing high quality work. And it's very hard to keep those initial clients that you get throughout your career as you grow and up your production value. Because if you take a job that the client initially doesn't really value spending an hour or two on a single image unless you can educate them and show them the value of that and then move them to that next level. You're not going to be able to maintain that client within the type of work that you want to produce. So that's a kind of difficult play back and forth. Like I started out shooting residential or real estate photography a lot, and they want you to come in, set up, shoot, move on, set up, shoot, move on, set up, shoot, move on. And so I would take those jobs and I'd generally try and find like a single image within that whole shoot that I could say, all right, I'm going to take my time on this image, and I know that that one's going to go in my portfolio that I can represent to architects and everyone else that won't really get that that was a real estate image, right? So generally in the elite photography range, those people are already going to understand what it takes to produce great imagery, and you're going to have to work with the people starting out that do not understand what it takes to create elite imagery, and you're going to have to educate them if you want to keep them as clients, or just simply price yourself out of working for them and move on. Take the images that you can from working with subpar clients as far as their understanding of what true photography, elite photography takes. Take what you can to add to your portfolio from that and move on. So generally, they'll know ahead of time what it takes if they're at that elite level. You're going to have to train them, or they're already going to have worked with an architectural photographer that's trained them, basically. That sounds kind of demeaning, doesn't it? But it's not. It's just how it works. Holt Webb, thank you very much for sending in your questions. Anyone else has questions that they'd like us to go over, please send them in and we'll do our best to answer them. Thanks a lot and have a great day. Bye-bye.